Now, I tell you what, you can excuse some cynicism about the US justice system, how it seems so politicised. I mean, you've got former Republican President Donald Trump. He's having the book thrown at him. Investigations everywhere, charges over his taxes, over keeping top secret documents at home and more. What happened to charging Hillary Clinton? Didn't she have them in a server in a garage and then wipe the server clean before investigators could look? I mean, seriously. Meanwhile, the son of President Joe Biden, like Hillary Clinton, Democrat, Hunter Biden, he's cut a nice, sweet deal now with the US Attorney for Delaware. It's a plea agreement on charges after an investigation into evidence found in his abandoned laptop, among other things. Evidence suggesting that Biden hasn't just used prostitutes and drugs, but made corrupt deals with people in Ukraine and China, trading on his father's name and his position then as vice president. Well, after all that, the only thing Biden is pleading guilty to is just a few relatively minor charges. Joining me is Annelise Nielsen, Sky News US correspondent. Annelise, great to see you again. After all that, I mean, 5 years of investigation, what does Hunter Biden expect to be charged with?
Well, what he's indicated in this filing with the federal court out of Delaware is that they've agreed to plead guilty to these 2 counts of tax issues where they didn't pay the tax that was owed on this $1.5 million of income in 2017 and 2018. Hunter Biden's paid back that $100,000 that was owed in each of those years, but the issue was it wasn't to the IRS deadline. And then the other one is pretty interesting. It's a firearms charge. And so what they've agreed to is a diversion. So that's going to be some kind of community work, it could be, but it's something agreed to with the prosecutor to avoid any kind of prosecution over that. And so that was a handgun that was in the possession of Hunter Biden. And then it became pretty evident through his prolonged drug use that he'd actually lied on federal forms about that. And that's a pretty serious issue in the United States when you're lying on federal forms about owning a firearm and drug use. And so that's where he was potentially facing issues there. But what also we need to remember here is this is a 2-year suspended jail term, essentially probation that he's agreed to with the prosecutor. And so if there's any other kind of issues in the meantime, he will be in very serious trouble. And this does still have to be signed off by a judge. And while that does seem likely, it's not always a given.
Now, I've got to say, Annelise, after all the hoopla about the laptop and what it said in there and the indications of potential corruption or corrupt use of his father's position, this comes as a great squib, a damp squib. So was the laptop story a giant beat-up? Is this a whitewash? Or, in fact, is this not the end of the investigation of Hunter Biden by the DA in this case, or indeed by Congress?
Look, the laptop's not a beat up at all, and you're absolutely right. This is not the end of it. And one of the interesting things that came out today too was that Hunter Biden's lawyer has said that this will resolve the issues, what they've agreed to, but the prosecutor, David Weiss, has said quite the opposite, that the investigation remains ongoing. And there was plenty on that laptop beyond what we're seeing in this plea deal playing out. We have Republicans in control of really key committees in the House of Representatives. And if anything, this has really emboldened them. They're saying that this is a sweetheart deal. And so they're going to use their investigative powers. And we heard Kevin McCarthy say, hey, if this has all been cleared up, then there's no reason the Department of Justice can't cooperate with some of our investigations that they've previously been saying, oh, we can't pursue that because we have our own investigations underway. If that's squared away, why can't you cooperate?
Yeah, so the president has publicly defended his son, as you probably would expect, but also to the point of telling blatant untruths, like during the last election campaign, he falsely claimed that this laptop was just Russian disinformation. No, it was genuine, actually. And just last month, he had his son accompanying him on a trip to Ireland and said he was actually proud of him. Here he is.
And I'm here with my sister Valerie and my youngest son, Hunter Biden. Stand up, guys. I'm proud of you.
What's the president saying now about his son?
He said he's proud again, and this does resonate with a lot of Democrats specifically, but many people who've had someone in their family addicted to drugs, and if they don't engage too much with the actual content, yeah, I mean, you are proud of someone that gets through drug addiction and gets to the other side. What's happening in the meantime, though, is there's some pretty serious implications coming out of these allegations, and what we're going to see over the next year is we're heading back into a presidential election season. I know it feels like it's way too soon, but it's all happening. Is we're going to have the president trying to run a re-election campaign. This is going to be a focus point for Republicans because they can rally around it when they're trying to deal with the Trump factor of everything. And it's just more politicians talking about things that aren't relevant to everyday people who they're dealing with. Economics indicators aren't going that well. Yes, inflation's coming down, but cost of living is still very high across the country. And then you have the Trump factor in where he's still litigating the last election being stolen, and that's not resonating with voters either. What is anyone selling anyone that's going to change their lives for the better?
That's a very good question. Meanwhile, Annelise, to a story that sort of, that I think sort of riveted the world, really. Time is running out for those 5 people, including a billionaire, who paid big money to go in a mini submarine that hasn't been heard of since Sunday when it dived to see the wreck of the Titanic. Now, we're told there's still enough oxygen on board this mini sub to last until Friday, but it does seem like the people in it are doomed, or is there some hope still?
Yeah, look, I think we've all become submersibles experts in the last 24 hours because this is just one of those stories you can't not follow. The race against time, the kind of technology that's involved in potentially rescuing these guys. But so far what they're saying is even that update from this morning US time of 40 hours being left, that was reliant on a lot of variables going their way. I mean, you think about people in a small space like that panicking, you're going to breathe faster and that might deplete oxygen quicker. More likely there's been some kind of structural defect with the submersible, so the pressure would get to them very quickly. And also the technology that they have access to now that they're telling us they're using doesn't go to the kind of depths they need to be able to recover this submersible, even if they can see it. But I think probably there is a bit going on that they're not telling us about. The Pentagon keeps saying that the Coast Guard is operating this whole rescue investigation, but you have to think there'd be some pretty sophisticated technology out there that could help in this situation. These are very well-connected guys with a lot of money. And I mean, when you think about the bills are going to be racked up with this as well, I think that would all be taken into consideration. But stranger things have happened. You never know. This could be a miracle.
Yeah, well, just they could find the sub, but how they get it out is another matter completely. Makes you wonder quite what the responsibility of the authorities is to spend huge amounts of money to save people that go in a sort of jerry-built little mini sub with apparently not much backup in case things have gone wrong, and they have gone wrong. It all seems a little irresponsible.
And apparently quite the disclaimer too to get in that little thing.
Well, yeah, well. Boy, the operators will be glad that they got that in their pocket. Annelise, Nielsen, thank you so much for your time.